Hi guys, I hope that you're all really well. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a Q&A all about hearing loss and about cochlear implants. Now, if you are new here and you don't know much about me or my family, I am Lucy and I'm a YouTuber, a blogger, vlogger, Instagrammer, whatever you want to call that sort of thing. That's what I am. I'm also a mum of one and my son is called Harry and he was born profoundly deaf. So profoundly deaf means that he cannot hear anything at all. He has no natural hearing whatsoever. He had loads and loads of tests. He had hearing aids and all sorts. And then at 14 months old, he was implanted with a cochlear implant. So a cochlear implant is an electronic device that was inserted into his skull, into his ear, and then it hooks up on the outside. I won't talk too much about what the cochlear implant is because I have done a video on it before and I will pop that below if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about what a cochlear implant actually is. But in today's video, I wanted to answer some of the questions that I had over on my Instagram about hearing loss and about Harry's cochlear implant. You also may or may not know that I make videos for and with Channel Mum, and this month it is Expert Week over on their channel. So we're talking about experts in different fields. Expert's such a funny word, isn't it? But I guess I am an expert in hearing loss and everything around that because I've had so much experience with it. Channel Mum have a support group where there is a ton of experts. You can go over to this support group and talk about anything parenting related whatsoever. You could talk about debt problems, mortgage problems, all of those sorts of things. There's tons of experts over there that can help you with your problems, as well as a load of other mums and other dads maybe that might be able to help you too. If you're interested in finding out more about the Channel Mum support group, or you want to go on there and write about a topic that you need some help on, I'll pop a link to it below. So without further ado, I'm going to get straight onto the questions. So the first one is, do you do British Sign Language with Harry, and is he going to mainstream school? So we started off doing a lot of sign language with Harry. We didn't know any. I'd never met anyone that was deaf before, so I never had to learn it. But when he was diagnosed, we were assigned a teacher of the deaf, and we were also assigned a sign teacher. So she used to come to our house every Thursday in the morning and we'd have a little group session of sign language. And I actually really cherished those mornings. Her name was Janet and she was so lovely. And she was actually deaf. She couldn't hear anything. So I was quite nervous because I thought, am I going to be able to communicate with her? But she just lip read, and yeah, she was so good. And I feel like she was really patient with us all. It was usually me, Scott, my sister, my dad, and there'd be like a little group of us all learning the basics. So we started off with a lot of the basic signs, and then some of them were a little bit more complex. We learned the alphabet and we really enjoyed it and used it a lot. Then Harry obviously got his cochlear implants and the need for sign definitely went away a little bit. So we still do use sign slightly when, for example, Harry hasn't got his cochlear implants on, so he can't hear without his implants on in the bath or at night time. So we'll use sign language during those times that he doesn't have his implants on. I am quite keen to learn it a little bit further and perhaps take it as a qualification, and then perhaps maybe push Harry to learn it, because I think it would be very good for him as a deaf person to learn a deaf language. Basically, British Sign Language is a recognised language, and I just think that being a deaf person, he really should learn something like that. But obviously he's only 4 at the moment, so I think we'll sort of explore it in years to come. And to answer the second part of that question, yes, he is going to a mainstream school. So the next question is, how did you get waterproof implants? Were they on the NHS? So when you get a cochlear implant, you go and choose from different manufacturers, and it is different depending where you are in the world. But where we were in Hampshire, we chose between 3 different manufacturers. It was, let me try and remember now, Advanced Bionics, Cochlear, and I think it's called. And we went for Advanced Bionics because they did this waterproof option, and at the time there wasn't any other waterproof option, and the type of implant that Harry has, which is the Advanced Bionics Neptune, was like also had like a separate bit, so it didn't go behind his ear. He just had the bit on his head and then it clipped to his like trousers or whatever. But yeah, it was completely waterproof and we'd got that on the NHS. I do know that with some of the other implants you can get waterproof accessories, so you can get like a waterproof casing that goes over it. But yeah, I don't know, I don't have any experience of those, so I don't know if that's the sort of thing you can get on the NHS or you have to pay extra for. do you know the underlying cause of Harry's hearing loss, and was finding out important to you? So we know the reason Harry can't hear is because he's missing these very, 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 very tiny hairs that are on your cochlea, which is right in the middle of your inner ear, and that is the part that vibrates and then tells your brain that you're hearing a sound. Everything else is intact, he just doesn't have those hairs. I think you're meant to have like some sort of number of 1,000 hairs, and he's got like 7, so that's not really going to do anything. So yeah, he doesn't have those hairs. The reason he doesn't, we don't know. So you can have tests, like blood tests, to see if you carry a gene. We haven't had those blood tests. I don't really know why. It's just something that we haven't really felt the need to do, and I feel like if Harry wants to know when he's older, then we will happily do the blood test, or maybe when we have another baby we might get it done. I don't know, it's just not been a priority for us. I feel like I'm one of those people where I just move forward with situations, so I feel like trying to find out the reason can sometimes feel like I'm sort of going backwards and maybe a bit negative on the whole situation, whereas I just try and move forwards all the time, and I can't change the fact he's deaf, so it's not actually hugely important to me and Scott to find out. He also had a test for something called CMV, which is a virus that you can pick up when you're pregnant and pass on to your baby, and at first they thought that he did have that and that was the reason, but then they realised that he didn't after some further tests. So yeah, we don't know. I don't really care. Did your son have speech therapy? So Harry hasn't had any sort of official speech therapy because we went to his first proper speech therapy session, which was, oh my goodness, this is really testing my knowledge. I feel like he was 3, and the reason they didn't do that in our area before that is because they believe that it's all about the listening first and they're not as concerned about the speech. So what I mean is they were very focused on getting him to listen properly, and then they said usually the speech then comes afterwards, and I really, really agree with that. At first I was like, hang on, surely he's gonna need like speech therapy immediately, but they said actually the less intervention, usually the better results, and in Harry's case that's been so true. So his listening skills developed really, really well, and he had a lot of listening sort of therapy. And then when he went to his speech therapy when he was 3, we basically walked in, she did loads of tests on him, like, you know, like naming things. She held up like 100 cards and asked him to name what was on the cards. He named every single one. His speech was so clear. He got things muddled, and he still does. He gets things in the wrong order in a sentence, but she said that's not really unusual for a 3 or a 4-year-old. So yeah, we literally got signed off there and then, which was absolutely amazing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with speech therapy, and I of course would have just been just as delighted if he had come out and they said that he needed more sessions, but just the fact that my child was born with absolutely no hearing, spent 14 months of his life hearing nothing, and then was told that he didn't need to go to speech therapy, I just find that baffling. I think it's amazing. Do you have any tips for bringing on speech, and did Harry have a huge speech or language delay? So I kind of obviously just answered this. So he didn't really have a delay. We were very, very lucky, and I think he was implanted just at the right time. So he was only really delayed for that first year of having his implant, and then by 3 he definitely caught up. I'm asked this question so often about how to get your children to talk and listen, and there isn't really a right or wrong. I just think you need to invest the time and just make sure that you're always talking to them. So even when Harry couldn't hear me and didn't have his implants yet, and we knew that he couldn't hear anything, I just still continued to talk to him. I just feel like just acting normal and him seeing my mouth move and me and Scott communicating, I think that really, really helped when it came to him being able to hear, as he could see that's how people communicated. When he first got his implants, we didn't sort of sit and test him constantly and like, you know, like talk behind with our hands over our mouths or anything, or pop balloons next to him. We didn't like make it an intensive thing, but we were sort of like encouraging speech and listening without him really realising, without us sort of sitting and focusing on that. I think reading books really helps. I think music really helps, although I have heard from a lot of parents with kids with cochlear implants saying that their children don't actually like music. So I think Harry was a bit similar right at the beginning. I don't think he really could like decipher it in his brain very well. So he wasn't that keen on music to start with, but the more we sort of played music, the more he loves it. And he absolutely loves music now, and he literally wants the radio up so loud. He's constantly got music on and he really, really likes it. And then there's things like just the basic deaf awareness, which is like talking so that he can see you as often as you can, so that they can see the lip pattern and see you saying the words as well. Harry is a fluent lip reader. He's so good at it. So I think that's really helped, the fact that we always get down to his level and talk to him like one-on-one. How do you feel about Harry starting reception class? Will he have support? So I am quite nervous about Harry starting school. He goes in, I think it's like 2 weeks time. I'm so sad. I am nervous about him starting school, maybe more than your average parent, because Harry has got a disability and it's very visible, so it's on his head and you can see it. Other than that, he doesn't act any different to other children, but I do kind of fear that maybe some children might treat him a bit differently, but I guess we just have to deal with that when it comes. I'm more sad that I'm just not gonna have my little buddy around, but yeah, I am like a little bit nervous because he's never been in a school setting before. He goes to a childminder at the moment with just a select few children, so he's gonna be in a class of like 30 kids. It's gonna be very noisy, he's got to concentrate, and I just don't know how he's gonna be. So if I'm honest, I'm very nervous about it. On to the second part of that question, will he get support? He will get support. He hasn't got a, I think you call it ECHP or something like educational healthcare plan. He doesn't have one of those because he apparently doesn't need one, but that's another story. But he will get some support. He will have a teacher of the deaf going in every fortnight, and they will check his ears daily, and it will just be a case-by-case basis. So if he does start to struggle, they will then apply for an EHCP and those sorts of things. What age did your son get his implants and how much therapy did he go through? I don't know if I've already mentioned, Harry was 14 months old when he got his implants. There was a very long process to get there. So even though we knew he was profoundly deaf, we had to prove to the NHS board that he was profoundly deaf. So there was a lot of hearing tests. Quite upsetting because I knew that he couldn't hear, his audiologist knew he couldn't hear, but you just have to prove it. And it's all money basically. They have to fund the implants, and if he wasn't suitable for them, then they obviously wouldn't fund it. But luckily he was profoundly deaf, so we could prove that he really did need them. How did you get through Harry's 6-hour operation? My son's is at the end of the month. Oh my goodness, I really feel for you. So weirdly, we actually went to IKEA when Harry was in his operation, which I know for some might sound really, really strange, but we basically woke up that morning, went to the hospital, which was about an hour and a half away, and we were there all day waiting for him to go down. He wasn't allowed to eat, it was very stuffy, and they took him down, and we were with family, we hadn't eaten, and they were like, look, I think we should just go over the road to IKEA, get something to eat, and then we can just come straight back. So we did, and I think that was like the best thing to do, because I think otherwise I would have just sat in hospital, I wouldn't have eaten, I probably would have fainted, and I would have just been sat there like upset, and time would have gone very slowly. Whereas I went and got something to eat, cleared our heads, got some fresh air. We got back, literally just as we got back, he was just coming out of surgery, and the surgeon came to see me and told me that it had gone really well. And yeah, so I just feel like that was a really good thing. I think one of my main tips before the operation would be to make sure that you're prepared and that you know everything. So I just made sure that I did so much research, and that any questions I had, I asked before the surgery, so I knew exactly what was going to happen to Harry. I even watched a cochlear implant operation online, and I absolutely hate blood and needles and anything, but I just felt like I wanted to see what they were going to do to Harry. I don't know if that's for everybody, but for me that kind of helped me deal with the situation. I also spoke to a lot of parents to find out what their child was like after surgery, so I was very prepared that when I went to see him after he'd had his surgery, that he would be swollen because he's full of fluid, that he'd have a bandage on his head, and that he'd probably be really upset. And all of those things were true, but I was very prepared for it, and it wasn't really as much of a shock as it could have been. So I think definitely ask all the questions you need to ask, and just make sure you have all your information and you kind of know what to expect. When did you first realise Harry was deaf? So we didn't realise anything. When he was born, he just seemed like an absolutely normal baby. He was perfect and we just didn't know any different. And then he had his newborn hearing screening, which I think was in the first week he was born. He failed it, they came back, he failed that. We were referred to the hospital, he had some more tests, and then we went for quite an intensive test where we walked in, there was a lot of machines and we were like, this is quite serious. At the end of that test, they then told us that he was deaf, and he was 7 weeks old when we found out. So as you can imagine, it was a bit of a shock. It was totally not what we were expecting as first-time parents. We don't have any deafness in our family. So yeah, bit of a shock. Does Harry worry that he is different to others around him? But to be honest, I don't really know if Harry realises that he's different yet. As I said, he is 4, he's going to be 5 in November, and he's going to start school, and I think that might be the point when he starts to realise that he is a bit different. He's never once asked me, Mummy, why does nobody else have magic ears? Like, he just doesn't ever ask me those things, but he does notice if other people have them. So if we've ever been out, which is very rare, but if we're out and we see someone with a hearing aid or a cochlear implant, he will say, Mummy, Mummy, they've got magic ears. So yeah, he's aware that he has them and he realises that he needs them to hear, but I don't think he realises that he's different, which I love. I absolutely love that, and I feel like it will break my heart a little bit when he does finally ask me, like, why am I different, Mummy? Or why do I have to have these? But yeah, so I'm kind of waiting for that. I think that it might be something that happens in his first year of school, maybe when somebody asks him why he's different. But yeah, we'll just cross that bridge when it comes to it. I think we just bring him up to be really, really confident. Me and Scott are quite confident people. We're like quite comfortable in our own bodies, and I just don't treat him any differently, and I just bring him up to be, you know, proud of who he is and proud to be different, and it's okay to be a bit weird and have something a bit quirky about you, and hopefully that just helps get him through any sort of awkward questions from friends. Do you have any tips for keeping hearing aids on little ones? So hearing aids were like the bane of my life, like, oh my goodness. I don't know if I actually do have many tips for you. We used to use a little bit of toupee tape, which is a bit like double-sided tape for the skin, and it would like stick the hearing aid to there a little bit, but there's sort of no stopping those little hands. Babies especially, they just pull them out and put them straight in their mouths. The amount of times I caught Harry as a baby with his hearing aids in his mouth and prayed to God that he hadn't choked. Yeah, it's just crazy. I don't really have that many tips. I know for girls that there are like headbands you can get. I mean, you could get it for a boy as well. Headbands that you can get where I think they're a lot harder for the kids to pull them out. But yeah, I don't think there really is many tips other than just try and encourage them to keep wearing them. What is it like living with someone with cochlear implants? So I can't really say that life's really that different living with someone with cochlear implants, other than the fact that I can hoover Harry's bedroom while he's asleep. Like, how amazing is that? Like, we could literally have like a house party down here and he could be asleep upstairs and be absolutely none the wiser. So there's definitely benefits to be able to take your ears off at night. Oh my God, so sorry if anything's changed here with the camera angle, but there's absolutely huge massive fly keeps flying around me and I just like knocked my tripod over. Yeah, I've been like this, like waiting to swipe it. So other than being able to hoover Harry's bedroom, I think like obviously there's things like we have to set up his ears every morning for him. He can't just like get out of bed and come into my room and we can have like a full-blown conversation. He obviously can't hear me, so he'll come in my room and we'll just have a snuggle, but we can't really have a proper chat until someone's put his ears together and put them on his head. So there's things like that that's maybe like a little bit annoying. Things like we have to always make sure we have backup batteries in case we aren't somewhere where we can charge his ears. So I'm gonna leave it there. I had a few more questions, but I think maybe I will save that for another time as this video will get super long. But do let me know if you have any more questions below and I will add them to my next video. I hope this video has been a little bit helpful for you, maybe if you are a parent to a newly diagnosed deaf child, or you just wanted to know a little bit more about Harry's hearing loss. Don't forget to check out the Channel Mum support page if you are interested, and I'll see you next time.